Welcome to TC Tiahui Talks, Tiachucha Centro Cultural, located on Tataviam land in the northeast San Fernando Valley, is rooted in ancestral knowledge, culture, the arts, literacy, and social justice as a means to personal and communal transformation. It is a place where hearts and minds have united for change for over 19 years. Join us as we share the stories of personal transformation and our understanding of the world that unites us as a community. We must remember that another world has always been possible. Tiahui, a Nahuatl word for adelante, to move forward. Like a spiral, together we move towards a better future, cognizant of the resiliency we carry from our past.
Hello everybody, welcome. This is another episode of Tiahui Talks. My name is Karen Ugarte and I'm the bookstore lead at Tiachuchas. I'm joined today by one of our bookstore assistants, Gaby, our 2020 bookstore intern Marcia, and our co-founder Trini. Welcome. Glad to have you all here today.
Glad to be here.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Hi everyone. Likewise.
Cool. So today we're going to be hearing from Trini about the history of our bookstore and how they have seen it change throughout the years. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about literature and literacy and maybe sharing with y'all some of our favorite titles at the end. But I wanted to start off actually by just giving you all some space to introduce yourselves. Anybody's welcome to start.
Well, I guess I'll start. My name is Trini Rodriguez, and I also go by Tlazoteo. That's my Nahuatl name. I got it when I was 65, which is not that long ago. And I have to say that it's been a real interesting ride getting Tiachucha started in 2001. And so now we're going on 20 years and just really feel so proud and happy to know that there's so many good people behind the dream that was Tiachuchas, to have empowerment, to have a place where we could, really see each other and ourselves and grow and have the resources and kind of support that every community should have. So yeah, I'm just so happy to see what a great team you've assembled. And so, looking forward to a lot of good things for the bookstore, for Tiachuchas.
Thank you, Trini.
Go ahead and introduce myself next. Hi everyone, my name's Gabriela. I use the pronouns they, she. I'm currently taking on the tasks of both the bookstore, assisting at the bookstore, but also helping out with the Young Warriors programming. But most importantly, since we are highlighting the bookstore, I guess that role comes, with a variety of tasks. It's always like a learning experience just because there's so many, like TC is so flexible and malleable in like its approaches to, the selections that we offer, the resources that are offered through like the books that we curate and everything. So I guess, yeah, it's just like really helping out with inventory or, whatever comes along. But it's a beautiful role. I think it's really unique. I never envisioned myself taking on this position, but there's always so much to learn, and community is always growing. Like there's always new books, there's always something new to learn. So every day is different, and I honestly just love that about working for the bookstore and just seeing the passion not only in like the folks who work at TC, but also the community that always comes by. They're always asking questions, they're always it's a really unique space, specifically catering to the community of the Northeast San Fernando Valley too. So just even being able to have a hub like this is so significant and vital and really like the heart of the community in a sense. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But yeah, I'll go ahead and pass it on to Marcia.
Hi everyone, my name is Marcie Moran. I am the bookstore intern for the summer. I recently began working with TC as a bookstore intern back in August of this year. And my experience so far with TC has been great. I love learning about, different tasks, whether it's running the bookstore, doing research to get new books for the inventory, or even just collaborating with all the different resources that TC has to offer in order to give back to the community, which is something that I've never personally worked with in depth. Especially, I never thought I'd end up having this opportunity so early. I just think the space has been a wonderful, little hub, like what Gabriela said, for the San Fernando community, which is somewhere where I, live all my life. So seeing a space like TC and then working there has been such a wonderful experience in my time there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'll pass it on to Karen.
Yeah, thank you all. I really appreciate that everybody has highlighted the importance of community in our bookstore. I feel like that's what we try to do every day, is not only like are we here for community, but we try to include community in what we do, from curating our books, taking book suggestions or genre suggestions, to the programming and all the other stuff that TC does. But I guess a little bit about me. I'm fairly new as the bookstore manager, maybe like, I don't know, 4 months. But I interned at Tiahui's while I was doing my master's in social work, and I really enjoyed my time, and I'm really grateful that I've had the opportunity to stick around.
We are too.
Thank you. Yeah.
You did amazing. So yes, all props.
Thank you. But yeah, Trini, I'd love to hear more about like why a bookstore, and how you've seen it change throughout the years.
Yeah, it's been it's like so many things about Tiahui's. We had an idea, and you've all touched on it. None of you ever thought that you would be in a position to run a bookstore or make it happen. But that's the whole thing about ideas. You can have a dream, you can have an idea, you can have a wish, but until you organize yourself around it, you we don't really know what it takes to make it happen. And then we find out that even though we haven't done it before, that we can figure it out, and with a lot of ganas and just support, it can really go well. And so I have to say that when we first gathered to our resources and with community to find out how to make Tia Chucha's, at first it was a cafe, and so it was a Tia Chucha's Café Cultural, and we did, we had coffee. I don't know how many of you ever saw that, but it was amazing. And but a bookstore also, and an art space, and a performance space, and we grew so quickly that by 3 years in, we opened up the tenant next to us moved out, and so we started the centro there, and that's when we started the nonprofit arm of Tia Chucha's. But the initial cafe also had a bookstore. So we were doing a lot of things, and that's true today with a lot of different things. The bookstore is only one aspect of what we do, but it's a really important aspect. So I'm glad to kind of look back and see how we've done with that. Because you're right, it's been, as Gabby was saying, we take a lot of time and put a lot of thought into the books that we carry, because I mean, we all know that bookstores are having a really hard time. The brick and mortar stores, there are a lot of online, is like Amazon, they're doing so much better. But we really take pride in trying to create a space, not just the product or the exchange. It's not about transactions, it's about community, and knowing our community well enough to know that for the most part we haven't had the kind of intellectual attention that we know that we have the capacity to build. And so we wanted to make sure that our bookstore really attended to the community that we serve. And that means, I mean, there's all kinds of statistics that say that we don't have, you know, our levels of high school graduation, and certainly our levels of attendance and degrees from higher education institutions are not very high. But that is no indication of our ability um, to really think deeply and to understand ourselves and the problems and also the solutions that we can have for ourselves. So a lot of what we do uh, with Tia Chuchas is we had the vision that we wanted to make sure that we provided a bookstore and a space, a wellness space that would attend to all parts of ourselves, not just the physical, but also the mental and the you know the emotional and also the spiritual too, in the sense of, you know, we're whole people, and we want to stock books that express and portray that well, because we all know that there's a lot of books out there, but not all of us really are speak to what our interests are, or even reflect our lives and the kind of things that the kind of questions we have about not just where we've been, but also what's possible. And so we want to have books that do that. But you can imagine, yeah, you don't have to imagine, you're doing it. You're, you know, just locating books, having distributors that are willing to work with you as a bookstore. You know, it takes a lot of work, and and so initially we had to start with, obviously we had no books, so we had to begin to be creative about like imagining ourselves as booksellers, and booksellers of a certain type, because obviously we're not going to uh, be a bookseller that's going to be um, you know, not attentive to the integrity that we want to have as a bookstore, as a business, because there's a business aspect of bookselling, of course. We need to make sure that we can bring in the books, but we also need to make sure that we can pay our staff and you know, keep the lights on. So, you know, there's that aspect, but we don't want it to be we don't want any aspect of the bookstore to suffer. And so we've really tried to make sure that's been the case. And you know, the better we do as a bookstore, the more we'll be able to really compensate staff better. And that's one of our hopes, is that, you know, we continue to be able to do that in a better way. And so I should say that for a very long time, one of the ways that we managed was by volunteers. We had a lot of you know, community volunteers, including myself, who for the time that I was the executive director, because Luis and I started it, we started it knowing that it wasn't going to be for our family, but rather it was going to be for community. And we just I said, we're going to forego any payment, so that we could have the basis to then support and leave a legacy. So it's been good to see that that's for the most part been established. And so now I'm no longer the executive director. We have Mike Centeno and Melissa San Vicente, who are the executive director and associate director. So so that's really good. And so we've learned a lot about what it takes to you know, the nitty gritty of stocking and paying for all our bills for the bookstore, being knowing about shipping, knowing about you know, all those different factors. That there's a lot that goes into it, and then we think, well, yes, it's not something that's very common in our communities where we have community-based I guess businesses, but they're possible, and we're one example of that. And so it's been good to see that we've learned from all the challenges of trying to do that, and then trying to do that well. And I have to say that one of the things that was really impressive to me was that over the years, we've come to see some of the people in our community whether it's in tech, in tech support, or in just sales and all that. We have some really um, very gifted people that have helped us along the way, and and it just is a reminder that if you really want to do something, you can figure it out, and you can do it with integrity and with a lot of heart, and meet a need, because that's what we're trying to do. How many of us went to schools and to bookstores a lot of times, even where we don't really find things that speak to us, or honor us, or even see us. So that's a big part of what the bookstore is, I think. And I have to say, there's a lot to be said also for the fresh ideas. Like I see what Tia Chucha is doing now on social media, and it's a lot of fun because it just kind of like um, people let themselves be who they are. You don't have to be somebody other than who you are to be an asset to Tia Chuchas, to the community, to your family. You are who you are. You bring your gifts and just let them shine. So that's what we're, I don't know, really hoping happens with the bookstore. And so I don't know if that's an answer to your question, or did you want me to say more about that?
No, I think that was perfect, and I think something that stood out to me that um, I know you mentioned like how this all started with an idea or like a wish, a dream, and really to me that ties into the idea of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I think literature is important is because it ties into like growing your imagination or just knowing that other things are possible. Um, so yeah, I think that was um, yeah, that's beautiful, and that tied in for my reason of why literature is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you all have any thoughts or anything you'd like to share, Gabby, Marcia.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how I love how you pointed out how we utilize other aspects such as social media. I've noticed that being more popular way of to not only um, outreach more people to come to our shop, that's but also to just have people informed about what we do, our message and everything. Because I learned through the internship through Instagram. My sister sent me a
Mm-hmm.
post. Hey, check this out. This sounds really great. This sounds like a great opportunity for you. And here I am working at the Chuchas, and it's been, like I said earlier, it's been such a great opportunity, and it was all through social media. So I really liked how you brought up how we utilize those aspects in order to spread our word and our message about TC. So yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, same here. I feel like there's been so many changes. Like I feel like TC is always evolving, but
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much the point, and that ties back a lot to like as to how we've been so resilient as a space too. Um, because like what I really like what you brought up was like the fact that we're not just a bookstore, or like your standard like brick and mortar. It goes beyond that, right? So touching on the emotional, the physical, like everything, like just setting intentions and really connecting with the community. Um because yeah, like I, looking back as far as like when I was a kid, I always enjoyed reading, but it was difficult, like the only library that I really visited was like tiny library inside the elementary school that I went to. I don't know if any of y'all
Mm-hmm.
ever heard of
Mm-hmm.
Clay
Yeah.
Primary before it closed down and then they opened Sarah Collin and all that. There's like a tiny library. So like I would always go there and like try to get books. But again, like do I remember any of them really being culturally relevant? No. Do I remember any of them being bilingual? No. I think the one book in Spanish that I do remember was this like little rainbow one with like a bunny and um like animals. It kind of reminds me of the little libros, the de
Mm-hmm.
colores. It kind of reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of that one. So, and I think I still have it stored somewhere, but it's just like that's the one book that I just remember having in Spanish and like always loving. And I also liked it because of the tactics and all that. But yeah, so like even just being at this space, at TC, and when we're organizing the books or getting new ones or looking at what to bring in, looking at what's selling and what's not selling, it's like it's just so amazing to see the variety. And like even with times as well, like the types of books that folks are beginning to release and the themes that they're touching
Yeah.
across and how they apply to our lives, like coming from the types of communities and backgrounds that we come from, that touch base on like social issues that are still very relevant, but also digestible for youth or for Spanish speaking folk or for young adults. um so I think like yeah, it I don't know, it's just really great to to be involved or to have been a part of working on growing that inventory that we currently have for the books, and just doing the work with everyone, and seeing what everyone has to say or what they think, or what they're looking forward to. So yeah, I just love how you know excited everyone is, their passion that they are about the bookstore, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the point of imagination is the starting point of creating anything, whether it's creating your way out of a place perhaps where we're stuck, or even creating a way to create something that doesn't exist yet. It starts with imagining, and the seed is always to try to, I think, um, to birth something that's of value. I think that's where it comes from, this wanting to create beauty and truth, and to see more of it in the world. And so it's I don't know, I just think it's again, it's a really important factor, but it's just also a really good starting point. So it's been that way, I think, throughout the evolution of the bookstore, because it's with categories, but like it's being said, the categories keep shifting, and it means that we have to be responsive to what's going on in the world. I mean, and when people are in the streets demanding changes, we have to have, I think, books that help inform what that change can be. And so it's important to have those books on hand, and then we also know that now there's a book club, so the people want to just, of course, read the books, but then sometimes we want to have a place where we can discuss those books too. And of course we can do that at home, or just sit with family. But also I think it's important to get the dialogue, to extend the dialogue, and to have that dialogue be inclusive of people that perhaps you wouldn't have talked to, with views that are shifting, or curiosity that needs to be attended to. And that's what I think the bookstore also does. Again, it just kind of feeding this desire to keep growing. And when we're growing, that's when we're healthier, we're more able, we find out more about, sometimes we go beyond our fears too. I mean, how many of us pictured ourselves being on a YouTube video talking to people who knows who they are, right? But knowing that if we're coming from the right place, we're coming from a place of really speaking honestly, and wanting to connect to other people who perhaps feel the same way and want to see this maybe in their communities. It's always good to know that we can, again, create that space, because nobody did it for us. YouTube exists, and it's for us to use or not use. That's what tools are for. And how you use the tool is just as important as using the tool. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to see how things have evolved, because again, social media was not a big deal when we first opened, but now it is. And we also know too that our community, in many cases, there's a real big range of what resources people have in their homes. And in fact, I was just reading. Okay, we all know that we're in a pandemic, um, and it turns out that our community, San Fernando, Pacoima, Sylmar, Van Nuys, are among the hardest hit right now. And so that means we have to shelter in place. But what a good thing to have a bookstore that's, I think it keeps very, very limited hours, but yeah, so that you can get a book, and then you can, if you're stuck at home, to open your imagination there, about the kind of, world we're looking at. And because we all know that things have been difficult for a long time. It's not just the pandemic, it's the pandemic has just uh, exacerbated a lot of things that already existed. And so it's important to use this time in a way where we can reflect, and books help us do that. Books and now Tiahui talks and all kinds of things help us do that. So if we're here for each other, we will create the things that will help each other. And keeping a bookstore vibrant and just responsive is part of that. So I think it's again, it's the first thing is the imagination, and the next thing is organizing to make that imagination have wings, to give it something so that it can fly. So anyway.
I love that. Imagination so we can fly. And yeah, I you know, coming into the podcast, I did start thinking about and trying to reflect on um, what like the the importance of literature and literacy. And I think you know, like you touched upon already, Trini, kind of literacy is more than the ability like to write and read and
Mm-hmm.
print and written materials, or it's more than that. It's about understanding, reflecting, interpreting, um, the imagination and connection, and like you mentioned, even um, and community in a lot of ways, not just in what you're reading, but also in things like the book club, or just having dialogue about what you read. And I think I just want to point out that like oral storytelling
Yes.
also does this, and I think is also a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think that what I was trying to say kind of awkwardly earlier was that that um, that we are underestimated so much, our communities. A lot of us who perhaps don't have really high levels of formal education, it doesn't mean we don't know things. We know things based on experience, lived experience. And sometimes lived experience, if you're really paying attention and you're learning the lessons that it's teaching you, and you're in the world in a way that that takes it in fully, it can be a huge. It's okay. I'll just say my I was lucky enough to be adopted by a Navajo family, the Lee family. And one of the things that my adopted dad says is that the the earth is, the universe is our university.
Mm.
The universe is our university, which means you don't have to be in a classroom. If you're paying attention to the world above you, the world below you, the world around you, the world inside of you, you are, if you're going to be learning something, because there's lessons, there's um, the nature and everything will teach us things, but that means we have to kind of slow down and pay attention. And unfortunately, the world, a lot of times, the way that we live it is very fast paced, and often faster than we can think, faster than we can make a good decision, faster than perhaps is best for the day that follows. So it's important to slow down and have some depth in terms of what we need to consider, and what needs to go into our you know, our decisions. So yeah, I think it's important to take a look at why it is that literacy is important. And you're right, Karen, when you say that literacy isn't just writing and reading and the three R's.
Yeah.
That's so old.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it really is about I think somebody once said that it was that literacy is the ability to function at the level and the potential that society is at. Now think about it. A lot of our community is behind the eight ball in the sense that access to internet, even there's a gap. Some people do not have the ability to access the internet, and or even phones that are smartphones. Let's say maybe they have a phone but they don't have a smartphone, um, and lots of things like that. So we need to take into account who is our community, where are they, and what are the bridges that we can create with through experiences, through books, through opportunities of engagement, through creative activities, all those kind of things that the Echuchas does. It's so that we can step into wherever people are most drawn to do it through, say, playing the haranas that are behind Karen right now on the wall, or through art classes. Through I know a lot of people who've come through Tiachuchas who you would think that, well, art classes are for kids, or guitar classes for young people. Well, no, we don't stop living when we turn 18 or get married, or or our seniors. We don't stop. We need to keep growing. And part of I think the sadness, I think that our community has had to live with for too long is this being seen as only essential workers, but not essential human beings. And human beings are more than just workers. We don't just live to go to work. We live to engage with community. We live to offer what we have particular to us, not to a company, but to us, to each other in ways that are satisfying to us, and help us know that life is worth living because we have something that is beautiful, just like the world is beautiful. And so I think that literacy is really much more than literacy is understanding uh, the complexities, and at the same time the I don't know, I guess the possibilities, and how to then arrange ourselves and align ourselves to be able to step into those things. So I don't know. I think it's a cool thing to see how some people have just sprung alive, in a way that they didn't expect. And so when I look at you all, I think, what part of you is coming alive? What part of you are you discovering that you didn't know? And it's really about the opportunity to be able to trust people to stretch themselves, because sometimes the way we think of ourselves is too small. It's too small. Maybe we got the ideas from school or institutions or the media, or even sometimes even our homes, that tell us, this is all you're supposed to do, and don't even try that. And so it's important for us to really stretch into that literacy, the literacy of, even of understanding ourselves. That's another aspect of literacy. Not just understanding the world. How well do we understand ourselves? So I think that's an aspect of being a literate person. In fact, my grandfather, one of the things that he was a really interesting man, way ahead of his time, I think, in that when he was bracero, he working up north in California, and there was a lot of other men who were working with him, and they would get letters from their wives or from their families, and because they couldn't read, and he only got schooled to, I think, the second grade in Mexico because he was kind of travieso, and they threw him out. But anyway, but he was he was very smart, and so he knew how to read, and so they would ask him to read for him to read them their letters. And he would, of course, do it. But then after a while, he would see that they were a little bit embarrassed because some of the things were very intimate, the way that they were, the things that were in the letters. And so he would tell them, look, this is good, and I don't mind doing this for you, but wouldn't you rather I taught you how to read so that you can read for yourself, and then you don't have to have, what really is personal to you going through me. And so one of the things that he said too was that there's more than one way to get an education. And he said, you can go to school, you can travel, or you can read. And I thought that was a really smart thing for him to say, because it's true. There's more than one way to get an education. I know a lot of people who are very, very creative and just amazing. And many of them have not gone to higher education formally, but boy, they are a match for anybody who's gone to school. And so that I would say that, especially for our maestros, from our indigenous backgrounds and stuff like that, they knew a ton. They knew a ton, and they know a ton. And the importance of, I think it was mentioned, oral history. It used to be that wisdom was passed down generation to generation, and of course there's been a kink in that for a lot of different reasons, historical reasons, not very good ones, but we know that education, that knowledge, that wisdom is in us, and we gotta tap it and then allow it to bloom again. And that's what I think an aspect of what Tia Chuchas is doing. It's helping people see their lives in a fuller way so that they can participate in the world in a fuller way. Because we need, just like there's variety and diversity in nature, we need variety and diversity in our relations, because it feeds us. We can't do everything, but other people can do things that we can't do, and it's a fuller experience when we can, we don't have to have the same gifts. We can have different gifts and then share them. That's like a potluck. Everybody's bringing their own flavor, their own way, their own perspectives, their own just angle that adds to what we can know and understand. So anyway, that's what I see it.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you all want to say anything in relation to that, Gabby, Marcia.
Yeah, wanted to add, I was like, that
I
didn't catch it all, but the quote, pretty much what you said, when you're like, literacy is understanding the complexities and possibilities and everything that comes attached with it. I was just like, yes. I don't know, I thought it was really, really beautiful. And just your approach to just explaining all of that is, like, I 100% like spot on. I can't stress it enough. And I really love the fact that y'all like bring up oral histories too, because that was really the beginnings of it, and literacy really is just so diverse, and having that ability to just like learn more about yourself, and also remove ourselves from like attaching our capacity or our worth to like westernized notions of success and knowledge and all of this stuff, like you were mentioning. Like, the universe really is our teacher. It really is our school. It has been this whole time, but because of the systems that have been set in place historically and everything over time, we've you know, gone away from, you know, seeing it in that approach. But I guess through this, you know, we're slowly bringing ourselves, you know, the community, and trying to reintroduce that idea. And like, at least for me too, like personally, just trying to see how I can fit into that, you know, and, you know, become more intentional in my approaches and in my, like, you know, capacity. Because like you were saying, you know, we do come from these communities where often like there's so many bright folks and bright people, and they hold so many talents, but it's just like we're not really taught how to like make light of them or how to bring them to fruition. And getting to that point, at least for me, has been the most difficult, right? And like I mentioned time and time again, you know, like it wasn't until I set foot into TC that I really started understanding that. And just by example, because everyone there leads like with their heart, with their passion, with what they do. So like being able to see myself and other people, and then like people just pursuing whatever it is that they want, and like receiving the communal support from it, was just like, oh, that's a reality, that's a possibility, like that's a thing, you know. So I think that's the beauty in it. And it all starts off with that literacy, right? With that imagination, with like reading, seeing, hearing something, discussing something, being in that space and being like, oh, it's doable, you know. So I think just that, like the pure heart in it, is I think like what's really beautiful about that. And like books, literacy, or, you know, recordings, like audio recordings, all of that, it just, I feel like, kind of takes you out of a space sometimes when you're just so like, you know, not like, it just reminds you to be present, you know, or, you know, to step outside of like the mundane in a sense, and just like make time for yourself and reconnect. But I'm gonna have to, like, you know, scroll back to this recording and like write down that quote, put it up somewhere. I'm just like, yes, Trini.
I don't know about y'all, but being at TC, I have a pretty long list of books that I would like to get through at some point.
I don't know about you, but do you usually read more than one thing at a time? I know I do.
I do.
Yeah.
Same.
I recently have like 5 books I'm just switching off. It's a big rotation. I can't just settle on one book.
Well, I recently read this book called There by I forget, his name is Orange, I think is his last name. And I thought it was really interesting in that it's about the urban experience, indigenous urban experience. And but it's the way it weaves all these characters together it seems like short stories, but they all connect some way towards the end in a powwow. But it's just really well done. And I guess it was his first novel, and it really hit it big. So it's just kind of, you know, because there's stereotypes too about indigenous people, and so he kind of breaks that up a little bit. I don't know. I'll just put that one out there for one. What else is out there?
I'm reading Beyond Survival: Strategies and Stories from the Transformative Justice Movement, and that's a book that I just keep on my nightstand because they're like short essays, and you can really flip to any section. Or I like to do that with poetry books too. Like I also have Make a Poem Cry on my nightstand, and if I want to read a little bit, like those are good books that you can always pick up, and you don't have to start from the beginning.
I recently just picked up this book, Black and Brown in Los Angeles, Beyond Conflict. It was the last copy at the shop, so I've been eyeballing it for months now, and I finally picked it up. It's basically a bunch of essays and historical context from different researchers, authors about being in Los Angeles, about Black and Brown communities and how they intertwine, what are the conflicts and what are the resolutions. So I kind of like to flip over it, go back and forth, since there are multiple essays in there. It's a really good, it's pretty good so far. It's just, again, one of the other 500 books I've been wanting to get from TC. I'm gonna start doing my Christmas shopping for myself because there are just so many books I was wanting to get.
Mm-hmm. That is a hefty book. My goodness. Yeah.
It's pretty big, but I'm gonna try and get through it. I just started, I think, past the introduction, and I'm already sucked in.
Honestly, yeah, that's the blessing and the curse about working at TC. It's just like you want everything. Like I'm like, oh, we got this, nice. Oh, we got that. Oh, so it's just like everything, and I'm like, but I'm currently I've been browsing kind of like All About Love has been that book for me that I just by Bell Hooks, just because it's like I like it because I don't necessarily have to go in order. So whatever I'm feeling, I'm kind of just like, let me, read over this passage or, like explore this. So I've been trying to get through that one. And it's just the one that I carry with me, like if I go somewhere and I'm just like waiting, whatever. But I've been also trying to finish Hearts and Hands. I just started it. So it's nice because I started it like maybe like 2 years ago, maybe, but I never finished it or like, got through it. So I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna start it all over because I can't, I like to, go through everything. So it's also nice, reading, I believe it was like the introduction where, Louis talking about the bookstore and, kind of like what you were mentioning earlier, when it started off as a cafe and, all it took to get to that point and how it was functioning at that time and how it's changed. And I was just like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like, so I've been enjoying it too, and I'm really excited to continue getting through it. It's also one of the books that I've been carrying around with me or close. So Hearts and Hands is definitely there for me.
Awesome. What about a book that you feel, I don't know, I don't want to say everybody should read, but a book that if anybody asks you for a book recommendation, like that's your go-to recommendation? I don't know if you all have one.
There's so many.
Yeah.
So many. I know
a little hard.
There's one I haven't looked at in a long time, but it was called Coyote Medicine. And it's this it's the story. I have a lot of interest in the indigenous practices and ways and stuff, and so partly just to recapture what we've lost, but the Coyote Medicine is basically a story of this this doctor who learned from his grandfather, basically what it takes to take care of people, right? To make them well. And so he wants to be a doctor. And then he goes to school and he finds that because it's all sterile and they have to wear their white coats and they have to be a certain way and it's very, very rigid, he doesn't find a way to bring in the cultural knowledge that they have in their practices of how to practice wellness. And so he thinks, well, I shouldn't be a doctor then. I can't do this. And in the process, he ends up finding that he goes to his grandfather and somehow he sorts it through that no, it's not about choosing. It's about bringing that medicine into the world of medicine, Western medicine, and blending it basically, because that's what we have now. We have hospitals and we have institutions and all that, but it doesn't mean that it has to be exclusive of our medicine ways. And so I'm really excited to see that there's a lot of changes in that realm too, of how to practice, social work, teaching, all the basically the arts of conveying culture and health and all that. There's ways that our ways can still be infused in it. And so that book was a really good reminder that not to give up, to hold on to what you have, bring it forward, not leave it behind. So anyway, that's a book that I like for that reason.
I guess the 4 Agreements, honestly, I'm like, I looked up and I'm like, there you go. The 4 Agreements definitely, again, it's like, I know for me, I can get overwhelmed too, right? So it's just like, again, like kind of like a pocketbook that you can always carry, and I don't think you can ever go wrong with it, you know, like just to ground yourself. I think sometimes we always need little reminders, you know, we can get carried away with certain things in life, so just like having that and just, you know, giving yourself a refresher, you know, just because you read through one thing or you know, see it once doesn't mean that, oh, you're always gonna, you know, have it in mind. You know, you have to constantly practice things eventually to just like, you know, learn from it in a sense. So yeah, I definitely think the Four Agreements, Damien, has been one of like my go-tos.
I think out of all the books I've read so far, I think one that I just keep coming back to is Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. It was one of the first books I read when I was younger that I actually like finished within a day. And I kept reading over and over again. It's just basically a coming of age story is a good way to put it, but about on the perspective of a young girl living in Iran during the one of the many revolutions they had. So her just going through like her growing up, facing trauma, getting over that trauma, coming into realizations with her mental health, and then along with the people around her. And also just, it's a graphic novel, so just the artwork by Marjane Satrapi as well. It's just so beautiful. I always like look back, even just to look through the drawings and read over the story. It's just, it warms my heart every time, and it's also heartbreaking, and it's just one big roller coaster, but I always keep coming back to it. And everyone asks me if I had to recommend a book, I would recommend Persepolis.
Nice. Thank you. I like the variety we're recommending. I think for me, a book that I have been recommending for at least the last 3 or 4 years to folks is always The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. I think I've read it 3 times, twice for school and once for fun. And and that's a book that I always recommend, because I feel like I often hear people say like, how did we get here? Like, and like why do folks want social change in 2020, or like this is not new. And I think that book really highlights and I also feel like it's not too like formal, I guess. So I think it's a good read. And yeah, I don't know if you all have I guess we can close up with a book we would like to read that's on our list.
I'm about to read one that I know was ordered for me. It's what's it called, Karen?
Yeah. I was like, oh, dude.
It's an interesting combination. It's the articles of for the UNDRIP, which is the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights, I think, of Indigenous people or something, UNDRIP, and two really powerful. Well, one person that I do know, two poets end up talking about it from a settler vantage point, each article, and then from an indigenous viewpoint of how to make that language, because it's so dry and real and necessary, but very dry, how to bring it to life. And so Lila June Johnston is a poet. She's a Navajo poet that that she and this other poet talk about each of the articles, and that one I'm looking forward to, because it's another way of looking at policy and what it means.
So. Yeah, so it's called Lifting Hearts Off the Ground, Declaring Indigenous Rights in Poetry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for putting that in the chat. I'm gonna look into that book.
Yeah.
I think for me, a book I've been wanting to read next off my list is all about love, like Bell Hooks.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've seen it around in the store, but I remember talking about it with Gabby when we first started working together at the bookstore. She recommended it to me. She kind of told me about the synopsis of the story, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds beautiful. Like, so it's on my list. Hopefully I can get my hands on it soon.
Yes. I don't know, I just love it. Yeah. I guess for me, I don't know. Like, honestly, like I have books all over the place, but it's like
me too.
Finishing them. The one that I've been eyeing though, has also been this other one that I purchased at TC, but I like just browse through it every now and then, but I do want to get back to it. Especially right now because I'm like, pandemic and everything, like just trying to get back in touch with like, what and how I'm nourishing myself. But it's called Body Imbalance. So it's basically just like a read through of like different herbs and remedies, like how to channel different points in the body through the foods that you eat or all of that too. So yeah, definitely trying to get back on that one too. So I could like physically, read and like work along as I, do that. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, I started this book, but I haven't had a chance to continue reading it, is Voices from the Ancestors, which Trini is featured in. It brings together like different writings and spiritual practices from Chicanx, Latinx, Afro-Latinx women, and also male allies. And it's another book that I've picked up and been reading here and there, but I'd like to just focus on that book alone.
I tell people that just the introduction itself will blow your mind. It is so good. Anyway, but the whole book, but the introduction is like incredible. Yeah.
Cool.
Before we leave, I wanted to just say, talk about changes. One of the things that I'm really excited about is I hear from Michael and Karen and others, the ways that people are really supporting online, that it's been really encouraging, because, you would think that with the pandemic that people would, just forget that we're there. But like I say, I mean, people are sheltering in place and maybe they need books. So they have really been reaching out, and of course, Tiahui has been also trying to remind people through social media that we're there, and those are so cute. I love those posts. Anyway, but yeah, so it's going well. And the other thing too is that we're starting to get some more interest in institutional sales, which means, if you know of people who are either in a position to make decisions in a charter school or a school or even an organization, that they can order books from us too. And that really is helpful. So anyway, I'm just excited that the bookstore continues to change, evolves, and most of all, just meet things where they are. And yeah, so what a team, 3 women doing it. That's so good. I was really proud.
And we have 2 team members also not here. I want to shout out to Brenda and Yulisa, who also work with us. So, and then like Trini said, our online sales, you're welcome to visit our website. We try to ship the books as quickly as we can. In the era of Amazon, we are trying to get your books as quickly as we can. We also have curbside pickup and limited hours, and you can always call. We can also set up appointments if needed. Thank you all. It's been wonderful talking to y'all, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording.
Thank you again for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow Tiahui on social media. Please support our online bookstore. You can find the links in our podcast bio. Stay safe, stay creative. Tiahui.